From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, it's the mailbag. Where is our headspace after 6 practices? Do we feel better or a little bit worse about where Florida State would be? Are the Noles in a better space at one position despite losing numerous players to the NFL draft, we suspect? And the debut of our new segment on the Renegade Express showcasing the best question of the week, generating discussion sparked by Cummins. Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. 2475 Appalachia Parkway in Tallahassee, Florida. On the internet, cptallybar.com. Daily lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for only $8.99. Still don't understand how they pull this stuff off. I was doing some retail shopping yesterday, Corey, and everything cost a whole bunch of money, but you can get a nice hearty lunch for only $8.99. For today, you get a cheesesteak sandwich, chicken or steak, and a side dish of your choice for only $8.99 at the Corner Pocket from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Go take advantage. And also check out Bingo Night later on, 7 p.m. sharp. Test those bingo skills, win some drinks and prizes. Even cash, I think, too, right, Corey? Money up for grabs?
Yeah, oh, man, yeah, $250.
Woo.
Every time you win a round, you get $250.
Let's go.
Oh, also, I wanted to say, Corner Pocket, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. Seventh Hills Tap Room, which is right below it, which is also owned by the great Bill Hayes. They have Fight Night on Saturday night for the UFC, the pay-per-view event. Now,
Nice.
it costs money at the door. I think it's $15, might be $10, but then you get to get in and watch all the fights.
Okay. I also feel like the $10, $15 probably helps eliminate some of the riffraff, but that's just me.
Correct.
My
100%,
inner monologue coming through a microphone. Probably shouldn't have said that, but I just did it. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Once you hit the thumbs up, if you're on YouTube, 5-star rating and review. If you're listening to this on the podcast, if you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, we're going to have that new feature unrolled out here today with our Renegade Express mailbag with our generating discussion sparked by Cummins. Corey and I will jump on video for a minute or two or 5 or 6. And I went ahead and picked out one of the better questions of the day. So that's how we'll do it. The best question will get a video feature. Whoever wins best question of the week gets entered into a monthly drawing to win some free Cummins swag. And every weekly winner of the Renegade Express mailbags generating discussion gets entered into a grand prize drawing at the end of the year for either a Cummins power station or a portable generator. Those things are a lot of money. They're going to give them away for free to our Warchant subscribers who hop on the ponies with us, Corey. So without further ado, but with further ado real quick, somebody commented on the show from yesterday and was asking us, seemingly since we're so pro SEC in terms of where we want to go next, what would be the dollar amount that would make you be more agreeable, amenable to going to the Big Ten? 5 million, 10 million, 20? Would it have to be more than 20, or no dollar figure would want you to would pick the SEC, would pick the Big Ten over the SEC for you?
Yeah, it's hard to ask us because we don't really have a financial stake in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember when Maryland left the ACC, and they left for more money. Clearly, great. And obviously it's done wonders for that athletic program. They're winning championships left and right. The football team's top 10. Oh, wait, they still suck at everything. But even still, like, they made that move financially for the school and did not think one iota about their fans. Not one. Maryland loved hating Duke. Maryland fans loved hating Duke, and they had real rivalries with, like, NC State and Duke and Carolina. And then you have a rivalry with no one. And you're playing Purdue and Northwest. Golly, with Purdue. I'm done with it. I'm not mentioning Purdue again until my birthday, which is June 14th. I'm making it, well, unless they win the national championship in basketball. I'm not mentioning them again. I'm tired. I apologize to all you Purdue fans out there that I keep using them as the first example that comes to mind. But anyway, so, like, and I'm framing it, my answer to that question like this, because I don't know, man. $20 million. I don't know what the value is on your fans and your town getting SEC competition as opposed to Big Ten competition. Like, I know Tallahassee would greatly prefer SEC because all those fan bases are coming. They're all coming. Every game is going to be a sellout. If you're having a down season at Florida State, but Tennessee's having a good season and they're playing in Doak, I mean, you're not going to want to see it, but there'll be 20,000 Orange fans there. Like, they will come. They will show out. SEC fans travel. They travel into your town. They spend money in your town. That's really important. And plus, it's cool for your fan base to get to go drive to games themselves. You can go to Oxford. You can go to Baton Rouge. You can go to Athens. It's harder to get to schools in the Big Ten. So what? I don't know how to quantify that though in a dollar amount. You know.
Maybe we ever get Michael Alford in a corner. We can ask him that. But everything Corey said, I co-sign and agree with. Good segue to our first question. The Walking Nolo won.
I thought that was our first question.
Now was it? Well, it was a comment from yesterday's show.
Oh, my fault. Hey, you should have told me to pipe down 30 seconds in. I thought we're starting off the Renegade Express.
Yeah, buckle up. We got a lot.
Oh boy, let's go.
Sharpen those knives, I guess, are the thoughts here. All right, so our guy Walker, Mississippi, wake up crew. First time being the first question on the board. Only took me going to the gym at 4 a.m. to see this. Hashtag work works. One comment, then a question. So I don't think Tallahassee is the only town that has price gouging hotels. I was looking at going to a Tennessee game this year since Doak's under construction. I don't want my Mississippi friends to see it in this condition, so I'll wait for FSU Bama in 25. And the hotel prices in Knoxville went from a normal rate of about $120 to $500 per night. Insane. Yeah. On to the question. Will either of you be in attendance to the charity golf tournament that Jeff Cameron's hosting next Friday? I'm signed up as a single person. Sadly, I'm not that good at golf, but I think it will be a ton of fun. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, we'll both be there, right?
Yeah. Are you on my team, Corey? Are you all-time quarterback, all-time putter?
I'm alternating between teams. I will be partly on your team and partly on Stephanie's team. We're hoping that we tee off. I've talked to Tom, who's the organizer, and your team and Stephanie's team are going to tee off from the same tee box. Because 6 teams have to do that. So I figured I would just, while y'all are on the green, I put it out. I'm going to drive on back to the fairway and hit with the ladies and then putt out with them. And then, you know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping to do. So, but I won't be on a team myself because my shoulder's just wrecked. Can't do a lot of swings. So mainly chipping and putting is what I'll do.
All right. Very well. And you mean we'll tee off at the same hole. We won't be teeing off in the same tee box because
correct.
Your wife will be teeing off from the Reds, as she should.
Well, yes, correct. Yeah, that's a good point, Aslan. And when I was going to play on your team, I would have been teeing off from the Reds. And who wants to do that? I admitted that out loud. I don't care. So instead, I'm just going to be all-time putter for both teams, I hope.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's any university that has a big-time college football program that doesn't gouge hotels. It still doesn't make it any more palatable to have to deal with. And I guess so much of it goes back to the fact that like Florida State fans seemingly have to do that. I'm sure there's so many fans in Tennessee that live in Nashville and surrounding towns that maybe Knoxville isn't the best comparison, but like, if you're a Gator fan, if you're, like an Alabama fan, like you got Birmingham, you have Nashville, you have Atlanta, like everything is within a 2-3 hour drive for you. But, so much of this fan base is in the Miami, Broward, Dade County area. Like if they're coming to a game, that's a 3:30 kickoff. They have to get a hotel. And if they want to get a hotel for one night, they can't. They have to get it for 2 nights minimum. So that's the stuff that really sticks in your craw. But I live in Tallahassee, so I don't have to deal with it. But you know what I did the other day, Corey, as we go to our next question? I've probably only driven down College Avenue in Tallahassee from like Duval Street. So only like 2 blocks or so before you hit the Westcott Fountain. On Wednesday, I got onto College from Franklin, which to some people might not. Basically think like where Cascades is now. The old Bennigans to some of the OGs out there.
Right, yeah,
so
absolutely.
I was coming down College from that distance. And, dude, you can see Westcott from over a mile away, and it's almost breathtaking. Like, really have taken it for granted just how beautiful the campus is. And I know that's such an iconic shot, Westcott, the fountain, the administration building. But to as you see it driving in, you're like, yeah, man, like they knew what they were doing when they made this university. Pretty cool.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
All right. Nice.
Island Chief, wake up. Competitive questioning. Glad you guys formalized what I'd already assumed was a contest. Yeah. All right. We got a lot of good questions too, Corey. It's incentivize people and they come out the woodwork. All right, so Coach Norvell seems a little saltier in his after-practice pressers, almost like he isn't satisfied with the results. Never effort, but the progress. Through 4 practices and a scrimmage, do you feel better or worse about the potential of this offense versus the day before the first practice? That's a good question.
It is a good question. I guess if I had to choose, and I'm just being completely honest, probably worse, but by a millimeter. Like I'm still very high on what this wide receiver core can be. Nobody has separated themselves yet, though. So that to me is why I'm a little bit. And you're talking to us a day after, or we're answering this a day after they dropped 7 or 8 more passes. So that's fresh in my mind. Is like these wide receivers got to go start making big time plays. But it's April. So there's time for that. Like next week, I might feel worlds better because they've had 2 straight practices of making great catches. Right now, just because I haven't seen the separate, like Malik Benson's been, good to decent. Destin Hill's been good. Jalen Lucas has been a revelation at running back. But overall, the wide receiver room, which was, right now, that's kind of the question mark, right?
Yeah.
We know what the offensive line is going to be. We know the quarterback's going to be decent to pretty good. It's the wide receivers. Are they going to be special? Are they going to be average? Are they going to be probably in the middle somewhere? And what end of the spectrum? Are they going to be closer to average or closer to special? That's something that still hasn't been answered yet. But it's also, like you said, 5 practices and a scrimmage.
I'm in that same kind of boat, probably just a touch, a little more cynical about where they can be. But part of it's for such a stupid reason, though. It's like Johnny and Keon were just so physically freakish that you saw them out there and you're like, yeah, man, they're going to be all right. And obviously that quarterback, like they do not have that just glaring, obvious stud of a wide receiver. So when we're talking about the offense, like that's the part. But again, right. They've got all this speed. Shaheem Brown spoke about it after practice on Tuesday about just, they did not have this in years past. So that could possibly unlock something that we maybe fully haven't been able to form in our minds. But yeah, just a smidge under maybe kind of what we'd hope. But again, it's, not even the halfway part of this spring yet. So plenty more football ahead to get it all sorted out. Blue Knoll. Hey crew, wake up. Do you think we'll be able to run the counter more effectively this year than last? Seems like last year's opponents were more prepared for it, and our O-line could not really do it as consistently as the previous year. Now with more beef up front and a stable of versatile backs, will we be able to make that our bread and butter once again on offense?
Well, when you got Jalen Todd pulling, am I right, Aslan? That's the wild card.
Poor Jane Todd. Everyone's gonna. Sorry, Jane. Now I put all these undue expectations on you, young man. I apologize.
Look, we'll see. It's hard to judge right now because of the way practices are run. They're not, I'm not saying they're not running counter, but there's not tackling. It's full speed, but up until a point. Like you're not trying to injure your teammates. I don't know if that Miami game from 2 years ago was just a straight up anomaly. Like that was crazy. They just ran the same play over and over and over again, and they couldn't stop it. I don't know if this offensive line can do that. I guess we didn't appreciate Dylan Gibbons enough while he was here. I guess he was a bigger difference maker than I even thought. But we'll see. I do like the guards. I like the guards, and I like the fact that there's a lot of depth there. Like they're gonna have at least one guard, maybe 2, that transferred here expecting to play and isn't starting. So that's good depth. But yeah, I don't know through 5 practices where only 3 of them have been in pads and we didn't get to see the scrimmage that we can make a really determination yet on what their strength of the running game will be. I do think it'll be better. And I said that on yesterday's show. They're hitting more stuff through 6 practices that we've seen this spring than they did even last spring.
I don't know if it's a dangerous assumption, but I'm just going to assume that those big runs that we do see pop off during 11-on-11 sort of situations, Corey, are a product of the counter play. So we've been seeing
it is an assumption, but it's probably a smart one.
Yeah. So we've been seeing a little bit of those more frequently in this spring. So we'll go ahead and assume that they won't be 2022 level second half of the season effectiveness, but they seem to be trending in the right direction and running the football. Dave's here, everybody. Bourbon is your friend. Corey, I love the story about Brady asking if the guy with the Ben Middleton's uncle t-shirt was his dad.
Yeah.
I just told Tommy we got him a present of a lifetime seeing the Seminoles play football in Ireland. Tommy's response, we'll get to go on an airplane. They serve Coke on airplanes, right? That's what I get for never letting him drink soda. I'm using all my brain power to generate the best question I can Cummins up with.
Okay.
Your practice observations suggest that Jalen Lucas could be the most electric player on the team in terms of sheer speed. He had the most amperage since Corey Wren. I believe Cam Davis has the most potential or voltage to become the next superstar. We all know Norvell brings a gigawatt of energy every day, but I'm hoping Sione Lolahea will do that for the D-line. You guys actually get to watch practice. What do you think? Who has the most amperage? That's electricity coursing through their veins. Who has the most voltage or potential, and who's bringing the wattage every day? Also consider naming the Amply Electric Player of the Week, brought to you by Cummins.
Okay, yeah, that's not a bad play. The great Amply.
Yeah, fantastic. Willie Taggart's favorite, Nole.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Jalen Lucas, yeah. Most amperage, he's the most electric player they have.
Yeah, and again, it's to the point now, like we talk about him a lot. We've written about him a couple times already, but I just wrote another column on him. Basically, the premise being the way the teammates talk about him, like the look they give you when you ask him about him. You saw Shaheem, you asked him just about the speed, and he talked about Malik Benson, and then he talked about Jalen Lucas, and he started laughing. And then DJ Lundy was like, there are guys that are fast, and then there's Jalen Lucas. And it's just unique when you see it. So I basically, like, he's a thing, right, Aslan? This is not us just – and look, we've got a pretty good track record, from the times we've gotten to watch practice. We've had a pretty good track record of telling you who was going to be good, and they ended up being good, or who was improving. This guy, if he stays healthy, is going to be a unique weapon that will be used a good bit and will be a big part of this offense. That, to me, as I wrote, is something that, as I still wonder about the wide receivers, because it's like a glut of them. There's no real separation. You've got literally, I listed it yesterday, there's 7 or 8 guys that might start, that have a chance to start. Deuce Spann, I thought, had his best practice. We never talk about him. And so you've got all these guys that have the potential to really get in the rotation and play. None of them have separated themselves. Jalen Lucas has been the newcomer, the guy that you're like, yep, that's going to play. That's different. I'm not saying he's Keon, because he's not, but it's the same kind of mentality when you watch that. You're like, yeah, they're going to make sure they get that dude. There aren't many schools that have a player like that on their team. They have to make sure they get the ball to him. He is through 6 practices that we've seen, he's been the most impressive on offense.
Potential, Cam Davis in the conversation for it. I kind of want to say Jaylen Brown, just because of the way he was, his recruitment in terms of how much he was valued, the way he was evaluated, his ranking, his rating. And we've seen some glimmers of it. I think I've seen more out of Cam than I've seen out of Jaylen Brown in these practices. That's just me personally speaking, but Jaylen Brown seemed to have a higher ceiling as a recruit than Cam Davis had. So maybe he's the guy that, if he fills those gaps between where he's at and his ceiling is the
they're so different body types, and I know they play different positions, but Jaylen Brown looks like he weighs 150, but he can move. Cam Davis, I pointed out his arms yesterday. It's nuts. That kid should still be in high school. I mean, his arms are the size of most people's legs. It's crazy how big, how squat he is, how big, squat, and he's got a burst. It's not like one of these guys like. Remember Greg Jones after the injury where it took him a while to get going? Mm-hmm. Even that run against North Carolina that was the year after his injury when he was awesome. That year, until the very end, he didn't look like himself. It took him a while. Some of those big, huge dudes, they're kind of easy to tackle until they get going. Cam Davis, to me, looks like he's got that kind of shiftiness and burst to go along with that. I don't know how fast he is. He looks plenty fast, but I don't know what his straight-ahead 40 time is. But he's got a burst and wiggle to go along with just a ton of natural power. Well, I assume it's natural. I don't mean like that. Not that he's taking stuff he's not supposed to take. I meant like he works out a ton.
Yeah.
That didn't just come naturally. He's put in a lot of hard work. So yeah, Cam Davis has a lot of potential. I think both those guys are good answers though, Aslan, for real. Jaylen Brown has made just the way he runs by people so smoothly and effortlessly. Hasn't resulted in a ton of big wow moments yet so far, but you can see some real ability there.
And then I'll say Shaheem for bringing the wattage every day. He's always on. He's always talking.
Yep, I agree. Good answer.
Random_John. Given the theatrical display of skill, talent, and the occasional slip-up at practice on Tuesday, if you guys had to cast a movie based on those days' events, which player would land the starring role and which genre would the movie be?
Yikes!
Yeah,
I gotta get these ahead of time. These are hard. These are brain benders.
As popcorn pairs well with movie watching, if DJ Uiagalelei could launch a football 65 yards, looking like he's barely breaking a sweat, could he throw a perfect spiral all the way across Doak Campbell Stadium and land it directly in a fan's bucket of popcorn? We're getting away from our ethos and our spirit on the show, guys. Let's dial it back. Let's dial it back a little. Yesterday, I don't know, man. It was a buddy. It was an action comedy.
Okay.
Like Lethal Weapon 2. Some jokes, but then some seriousness. Some real good work going on there, but then some lighthearted moments.
Right.
I don't know who the starring role would be. I don't know which player would have this. I don't know who would be Riggs. I don't know who would be Murtaugh. Sorry.
I'm trying to think. I don't know who the star. There really wasn't a star from my point of view on Tuesday's practice. So I hate to punt the question, but there wasn't like one player on either side of the ball that just had a fantastic day. So, by the way, apparently I was wrong, and I don't want you guys not to trust my observations from here on out. I somehow made a mistake, and that one-handed catch over Azaria yesterday was Portier and not Benson.
Okay.
At least judging from the FSU football Twitter account. I don't know how I thought it was Benson, but it was Portier.
They got the ones. They got the ones and the zero, the numbers.
1 and 1-0, yeah. You're right, but still – I'm so used to Portier being 88, and he's 1 now. I guess it's just not clicking in my brain.
I feel like you resent Kentron. I feel like you're like you are not as good as I think my eyes are. I'm not going to let this number win. You're upset that he went to number 1 and he's now opening your eyes to his greatness potentially. You don't want to be that way.
There's no resentment there. Well, no, there is today because I got something wrong. I don't like doing that. But otherwise, no, man. I told you he just looks different in 1. But the reason I said that is because he made 2. If that was him, which it was, he made 2 really tough contested catches against Azaria yesterday. So I want to give him like whatever the starring role in our action comedy. Yeah. It's a tough question to answer, folks. But he also dropped 2 passes that he needs to catch. So he had some good and some bad. So yeah, I guess that is like an action comedy. Yeah, some good and some bad. It gets a 61 on Rotten Tomatoes.
There we go.
Watchable.
Polk County Nole, love you guys. Listen to every episode. If our tight ends are struggling to inline block this camp, have our slot guys shown the ability to block in space? If so, who? We can run a lot of that counter game out of a more spread offense and still be very effective. Thanks for all you do. Bonus question for Corey. How much have Jackson West's abs improved?
I guess he's always had them, but Aslan, again, what Jackson West does at practice is he's one of those guys that rolls the jersey up. So you see
very Ezekiel Elliott, very 80s.
Yes. Correct. Warwick Dunn, I think Warwick Dunn used to have just basically a cutoff shirt, a jersey. It wouldn't even go all the way down to his belt buckle. That's how they wore him back then. So, but you just see him more. I'm sure they all have them, which I don't understand, Aslan. They're not doing sit-ups as a team, are they? This isn't like 5th grade PE. So is it just all the deadlifts and the squats? The core, that's all core work? And that's how they get them?
That doesn't necessarily target it, but I'm sure that they do core-specific work, like warm-up stuff that's going to get all that stuff firing. And then, when you're deadlifting and you're doing overhead shoulder press and all those other things, those compound movements. Right. But yeah, man, Jackson West, if the football thing doesn't work out, he could probably be like an action superstar or some sort of fashion model, probably. He's a good-looking guy. He's in good shape. Good for him.
And also, he apparently is going to be a part of this offense. Like, I would say, out of the guys that are in contention, he's the best blocker at tight end right now. He's a physical kid. He's not as good in the passing game as Morlock, but I think Morlock's really good there. And as far as the slot blocking,
that's that 3-on-1 drill kind of thing.
Yeah, and
right?
and I'll be honest with you, I appreciate the question. I'll look at it more.
Same.
I haven't watched it enough to give a real answer. I know they're pretty small there, but slot guys are small. So we'll see. I do think that tight end blocking has to get better. I think Morlock and Landon Thomas are by far your two best pass catchers. But if they do need some physicality at tight end, Jackson West offers that, and I think he was playing by the end of the year last year. He's had a hard time staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, I think you like what he brings to your offense as far as like a nastiness and physicality and abs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always not. I mean, think about lining up next to a guy that's got a 10-pack.
Yeah.
You're going to be a little leery of what's going on. You're going to be a little worried.
Can't say for certain it's because he takes a Vitamin Energy Burner Plus.
You can't say it isn't, though, right?
I can't. Correct.
You can't dismiss it.
Cannot. VitaminEnergy.com, everybody. Promo code is Warchant BOGO. That's Warchant BOGO. Use that and get an item of equal or lesser value for absolutely free. They're Florida State fans and alums. They listened to the show one day and we're like, hey, if you want to sponsor the show, let us know. And ever since then, they've been hooking us up with this fantastic formulation, vitamins and energy and nutrients, 260 milligrams of all natural caffeine, 3 nutrients in the Burner Plus, Corey, that gets the blood flowing, helps burn more calories, and also turns some of that fat on you into burning the calories and then giving you more energy. Crazy how that all works out. Crazy that's all in a little 2-ounce bottle, not even 2 ounces, and tastes great. Pomegranate acai flavored, the Burner Plus. Give it a shot. VitaminEnergy.com. Buy one, get one free with the promo code Corey.
Warchant BOGO.
Back at it. Our guy Grumpy BK. Wake up. He's got 2 questions, Corey. A little twofer action.
Mm-hmm.
Question 1, who do you project as our 2 starting safeties? And if you're not allowed to say that, let's assume it's Shaheem and Hussey. If so, is that an upgrade or a downgrade over last year? Definitely Shy. And whatever you think you're losing with Akeem, you feel like Shaheem's gotten that much better, so that maybe offsets it in a certain way. But yeah, Ashland Barker's in the mix, Hussey's in the mix.
The transfer from Miami.
Yeah, Devontae Brown's in there as well. But I would think Hussey maybe has a little bit of a leg up. Can I go with a push instead of an upgrade or downgrade over last year at safety?
Yeah, I would say if Akeem Dent had been healthy all year, I would say a downgrade. But Akeem, although he played great in the Florida game, he wasn't really himself for a lot of the year. Like, he didn't practice a ton, right? He missed a lot of practice time. I don't think he practiced a lot during the course of the season, especially through like October and November. I don't think he practiced a ton. So getting that Akeem, although what he gave you, from not even just a leadership, but a calling out, knowing where to be, that experience that he had is going to be tough to replicate. But sheer ability, I don't think you're losing a ton when you compare whoever's starting to the Akeem that was a bit hobbled throughout the 2023 season. And as Aslan said, if Shaheem levels up and goes from a good safety on a really good football team to a great safety, which there's a chance he could be that, then yeah, I think the position might be a little bit better, even if Hussey, Barker, or whoever isn't quite as good as Dent was last year. Like the same thing with the corners, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a chance the corners could be better, even though you lost Renardo Green, because there's a chance, it's not official, it hasn't happened for sure yet because games haven't been played, that Azareye'h Thomas has really leveled up. And Azareye'h Thomas could end up being one of the 3 or 4 best defensive backs in the country. That's what I think his potential is. So if that happens, even losing Renardo Green, you might be better at cornerback.
Just to be a contrarian,
Don't do it. No need to do it. What is this? Wake up contrarians?
I'm just saying, even if Azareye's a little bit of a mark above what Renardo was last year, man. Renardo was really awesome. Then you had Azareye'h and Jarian Jones, and now
Oh, that's true. I was
Gnomes.
thinking that's a very good point. I was thinking more just the two outside guys.
Okay.
Not the nickels. Yes, if you throw the nickel into the mix, it's gonna be hard. Even though we think Earl Little can really play, it might be hard to replicate the four. I mean, your four corners last year, your four main corners were Renardo Green, Fentrell Cypress, Jarian Jones, and Azarie Thomas.
I keep forgetting about Fentrell. So disrespectful. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
man,
Trell.
He's been good.
Yeah.
He's been good.
Yeah. Second question, in honor of the chicken tender discussion that got the realignment thread locked. You people are crazy. Rank your fast food chicken from best to worst. He put his in alphabetical order. Zaxby's, that's all you got to know, right? Zaxby's number one.
Yep.
Zaxby's
we won't even talk about because it's assumed it's number one.
Yeah.
So after Zaxby's, let's go.
Who do you have? He's got Chick-fil-A, KFC, Popeyes, Raising Cane's, Other, The Field.
We had, I
Churches,
like,
give churches some respect. Put some respect on their name.
It's weird. Like there's a place up where I live near in Atlanta called Huey Magoo's. That's a lot like Raising Cane's, which is a lot like Slim Chickens. It's like these things are just popping up everywhere.
Which is
They're
a lot
almost
like Guthrie's, which is a lot like Zaxby's.
Zaxby's, yeah. It's like it's like a revolution has started with these chicken strip restaurants. They must be low overhead. I don't know why there's an inundation of these chicken strips restaurants. I say that I don't know why. That's all I've fed my kid since he's been down here with me. It's just chicken strips. It's so easy. It's just, hey, you want some Chick-fil-A? You want some Zaxby's? You want some Slim Chickens? All right, well, here you go. So I would say, man, I get other than Zaxby's, I guess I would go.
No, Chick-fil-A. Sorry,
Chick-fil-A, sure, but I also have always liked the Burger King original chicken sandwich, the long one.
Yes.
I've always
Way
loved
to go
that
off
thing.
the board.
Yeah,
but
I did exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thing is so simple but delightful at the same time. Look at you.
Now, look, I know if you go to Burger King, folks, you're going to have to wait in the drive-thru for 14 minutes, and you're going to have to see some stuff in the parking lot you don't want to see. But the original chicken sandwich is worth it if you go there.
Oh, man. Seminole Carol says she was laughing so hard the other day listening to us pick apart the Mount Rushmore argument from a writer from The Athletic.
Right.
Your rant was absolutely hilarious, Corey.
Oh,
All
okay.
this being said, who is on your Mount Rushmore of the best collegiate football coaches of all time and why?
Well, Pete Carroll won. That goes without saying. Then who was the other one?
Mo
Dabo,
Schembechler.
Dabo, Tommy Bowden. Who else? Whoever else they had there. No, I would go Bowden, Saban, and
Pete
then
Rockney?
I mean, no. After that, I basically
Tom Osborne?
Yeah, but Nebraska was so good before him. Like they were really good before Osborne took over. He was great. He was very consistent. They were consistently really good. But I guess you'd go Osborne because they were so good in the 90s.
Just feels like you had to do Bud Wilkinson, Daryl K. Royal, or Tom Osborne. Like there has to be some representation
Definitely
from
not
the heartland.
Definitely not doing Wilkinson because he won all his titles before integration, and that doesn't count. Same thing with Rockney. Same thing with John Heisman. If it's just white people playing football, yeah, no, count me out. That doesn't count. None of it counts. So I would say post. So I always choose post integration. I mean, no, I was going to say. So I'm not going to say Paterno. He was great for a long time, but no chance he's on my Mount Rushmore. So I'm only going to have 3. Is there a rule that you can only have? You have to have 4. I'm going to say 3.
It's kind of what the whole Mount Rushmore thing is.
Osborne, Saban, Bobby Bowden.
Eddie Robinson.
There you go.
Put it around.
Perfect.
There
There's
you
a
go.
4. There's a 4.
And we're done. ESPN did a ranking of this back in 2019 when they had their 150-year anniversary thing. And Osborne was 4th.
Okay.
Bud Wilkinson was 6th. Paterno 7th. Bobby 8th.
Who was 1?
Bear Bryant. Nick was
Yeah.
2nd.
Yeah, Bear Bryant's a good. I somehow forgot about him, but I don't want to have 2 Alabama
Yeah,
guys.
I know. That's
Would you rather have Bear Bryant or Saban? Who belongs on it more? I personally think Saban.
Saban, yeah, man.
Yeah. Because back then, look, Bear Bryant could there were unlimited scholarships, I believe, or you could get to like 120 or something. So he would literally take, and you couldn't transfer, or you could, but it was a whole to-do back then. So he would take, he'd have 120 scholarship kids on his football team, and he would take really good players that never played for Alabama, but they couldn't play against him. And so he did that for a long time. And Nick Saban, to do what he did in this age, in this era, especially when you see all the other coaches that come and go, for him to have done it for 15 years like he did, really, look, man, and everybody knows how I feel about last year's Alabama team and what happened and how they didn't belong. But overall, his tenure, you can't argue with it. I think he's the greatest that's ever done it.
Quinn67, wake up loving the show, loving the content this spring. Keep bringing it. On headlines, you all briefly discuss your reaction to running into a famous person, Ira's Sam Cassell story. I have a funny one for you. After the national title win against Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, January 94-93 season, my buddies and myself, we had just graduated that semester, along with my father, went back to the team hotel to welcome them back and cheer them on.
Which game? I missed the first part.
National championship game. Nebraska. You were there.
Okay, got it.
With your sister and your father.
Yep, that's right, correct. And my girlfriend at the time.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
As we were, what's she up to these days?
Shout out Jessica. Don't worry about it, Aslan. No need.
As we were walking up to some of the folks waiting, there were some former players and students we knew from campus. One of my buddies, who was over intoxicated, walked up to a guy on crutches, and yelled, "Holy shit, you're Marvin Jones." He then proceeded to go around telling everyone, "That guy is Marvin Jones." Luckily, it was Marvin. The team arrived a few minutes later, and we focused on them. Do you all have any other funny run-in stories with FSU celebrities?
I mean, it's kind of, but I mean, we see them a lot because of what we do. Before I had this job, I almost got hit. So my dad used to, one of his really good buddies, who was also a big Florida State fan, that's how they became buddies, is they sat in the row behind my dad. He was like the comptroller from the Omni, which was where the Hawks played forever back in the 80s. So he would give my dad his parking pass every night because my dad had season tickets. So when we come to the games, we get to park right underneath the arena. Like great parking. Like we would walk out the side door of the arena to our car and drive off because Chuck Duncan gave us the spot. And I do remember one time, literally like a car screeched to avoid hitting me. And it was coming in a little bit too fast, and it was a fancy car, and it screeched to avoid hitting me, and it was Dion driving it.
No, really?
So, there you go. Yeah, Dion. But it would have been like, I would guess 88 or 89 when he was a rookie with the Falcons. And, yeah, he had a nice car that screeched to a halt. He didn't honk at me because he knew it was his fault. But, I had to almost dive out of the way of getting hit by Dion.
Look at that.
That's something, right?
That would have been a huge butterfly effect moment, right, in the entire sporting universe.
Think about that. Would Taggart still be here if Dion had hit me? You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Who knows how all that – would Dion be here?
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Would it still be called Doak Campbell Stadium? Would it be Clark Stadium? Would you have owned this entire city?
Right. I somehow sued Florida State for Dion hitting me.
Taking Dion's money and then, put that into the stock market. Maybe you would have bought Google stock. It's IPO. Yeah. And then who knows where it would be. I don't have any interesting story that I can think of off the top of the head. But thank you for sharing yours, S. Quinn. Can you tell me, though, Corey, was that a punchline? How was that Marvin Jones? I thought Marvin Jones was gone.
He was, but I assume he came back. Like he came back and watched the game.
Well,
he was with the Jets. Well, yeah, because he probably got hurt that NFL season.
Right.
So I think he probably came back and watched the championship game.
That's his hometown, right? Yeah, it's his backyard.
Yeah, he's from Miami. It makes sense, yeah.
Maybe Jets probably weren't in the playoffs. It's January. All right, it all adds up. Checks out.
I do. This is a weird one, and I'm going to go really quick with it. I don't think you were there. So, no, you wouldn't have been yet. It was like maybe the 2012 ACC championship game, or 14. We're in Charlotte at the area where all the bars and restaurants are. And Dave Roberts, who was a tight end like in the late 80s, good enough player. He was from Griffin, Georgia, but a good enough player. He started and played a lot in those late 80s football teams that were good. And because of the way my brain works, I remember reading a Q&A with him when I was 13 or 14 years old that the Osceola did with him. The Osceola, which was the website that, or not the website, there was no web back then. It was a newspaper, a Florida State newspaper, Florida State athletics newspaper that my dad subscribed to. So anyway, I read a Q&A with him, and his favorite band was Driving and Crying. I don't know if you know them.
No.
They sing I'm Going Straight to Hell. They sing a couple songs you might know, Fly Me Courageous. But anyway, they were kind of popular in the mid-'90s. And his favorite band was Driving and Crying. Anyway, we're at that bar in Charlotte. He comes and sits down next to us because he knows somebody we're with. And I'm like, you're Dave Roberts, huh? And he goes, yeah. And I go, didn't your favorite band used to be Driving and Crying? And he looked at me like, how the hell would you know that? And that's why, because my brain works a certain way. Somehow, I don't remember birthdays. I don't remember so many things. I don't even remember the name of the Oregon State transfer that's going to start at defensive end for Florida State this year. But I remember that Dave Roberts' favorite band in 1989 was Driving and Crying.
Ah, the human brain.
I think I freaked him out. He wasn't at our table long.
Old Dad's a Nole. No basketball news yet, so I have a couple of technicals.
There is a couple basketball news. Tom House is in the portal. And then Cam Corrin on Wednesday entered the portal as well.
Well, that's not.
Not great.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at a roster that doesn't have a lot of. I think he's the fourth player to enter the portal. Plus, Jameer's, and they've lost, I think, 4 guys to eligibility. So, the seniors they're leaving to go test the pro water. So they don't have a lot of dudes on the team right now.
Question one, why do you guys show pregame warm-ups during the postgame wrap instead of game highlights? Oh, I can answer that. We do not have the rights to show game highlights. ESPN owns those. Local TV is allowed to film their own footage of the game, but they're technically only allowed to show it for 48 hours, and I don't think they're even allowed to put it on their website. So like WCTV can show you a 5-minute highlight of all the stuff they shot themselves, and they can put it on their nightly newscast, but they're not supposed to be able to show it more than 48 hours after the game, which no one really busts each other's chops on. But a lot of times you won't see them upload it to their website because they're technically not allowed to be doing that either. So yeah, that's why we can't show you. There was a year where we actually purchased licensing to be able to show some game highlights. But we had to kind of, each of us had to give up an organ. And we don't have any spare organs. It's really, really, really expensive. So I shoot some pregame warm-ups just so, I mean, not that Corey and Ira aren't great to look at, but just to mix in a couple visual elements during the wrap, so it's not just them on camera talking the whole time. So yeah, that's why you get your pregame warm-up stuff, and that's why Warchant Report has practice footage in it, because we can't show you game highlights. If we could, though, my gosh, I'd love it. I would love it. All right, second, thank you for coming to the defense of Miami to an extent. Like you, I have lived through the Schnellenberger, Johnson years when Miami helped put football where it has become. Yep. Their big games with Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Florida State helped set up what was the national rivalry game.
I love, real quick, bringing up Oklahoma is a great reference, because that was back when Oklahoma, I mean, that was always number 1 versus number 2. Those were game of the centuries before Florida State got involved, because this was the mid-'80s and Florida State hadn't quite reached its zenith yet. Cross-sectional, old-school dominance like Oklahoma that had been around forever, going up against the new kid on the block, Miami, and getting throttled every time they played. Like just getting punked, really kind of set in motion what college football became. That people started taking, obviously Miami seriously, but the whole non-traditional program seriously. Miami was at the forefront of that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Those games against those teams set up what was the national rivalry game. People who were not alive then cannot comprehend just how big our game was with them nationally.
Right.
Great times. Cheers to the best, old dad. And people have accepted that, Corey, but then tell us that we need to live in the present and that those days are long gone, and let Miami rot. To which I say, okay, we get it, but hopefully you folks understand that we're coming from a certain time where it was, pretty cool to see both teams on top.
Correct. No. I was trying to look up, if you could look up the TV ratings for those games.
No,
and You probably can't, because I know, with good reason, that Iowa LSU game got a lot of publicity because it had 12 million viewers, which is unbelievable for an Elite Eight women's game. I mean, that's just incredible, the Caitlin Clark effect. But I was looking up, I wonder, because back then there wasn't that much to watch. But also because college football was so dumb back then, all those wide rights, all those game of the centuries, noon. High noon is when those games were played, but I don't see ratings yet. So anyway, go ahead.
All right, next question. I think this is going to be it, Corey. I think this is my favorite one. I think this will help generate discussion, if you will. Stand by for sound, everybody. Oh yeah. Fire up the cameras. Corey and I now on camera here. It's a Renegade Express, warchant.com's Wake Up Warchant. Generating discussion. We're trying to spotlight the best question every single week here on the Renegade Express. Our folks at Cummins partnering up with us to help generate discussion with some giveaways. You can barely hear the faintest sound of the generator running. That's how quiet these things are. But you don't have to purchase a generator to get in our good graces here. Just post your questions over at warchant.com. Follow Cummins over on Instagram at Cummins Lifestyle. It's all one word. There's this huge project they're working on, Corey, that's maybe going to culminate in a town in Indiana on a day when the Noles are in town. Maybe.
Okay. All right.
So
that was vague enough. I like it.
Yeah. More details to come. Follow them on Instagram. We certainly would appreciate it. Florida State fans over at Cummins that are partnering up with us on this. So it's really cool. With that said, Corey, let's get to our question. It comes from our guy, Nole for Life, class of 2007. The gist of it's on our screen right there, but he says he's been embroiled in a Twitter beef with Clemson fans over the On3 power rankings that recently were released for coaches in the ACC. I politely, of course, question why Dabo Swinney was number one. Clemson fans think the power ranking should reflect the full body of work. If that's the case, sure, Dabo number one. My contention is that Norvell is the reigning national coach of the year and was one of the top candidates to replace Nick Saban. To me, if Norvell's the best coach in the nation, then he should be at the top of the ACC coach power ranking. What say you?
Well, I would say don't judge the best coach in the country by those awards. Just like Jimbo never won an ACC Coach of the Year award. They gave those to David Cutcliffe for going 5-3 in the Coastal. Meanwhile, Jimbo had one of the best college football teams that ever existed, and he got one vote out of 60. So don't just judge it by those awards. And I would say, look, man, I know Norvell has been very good. But yeah, I don't think it should be the only thing, because if resume was the only thing, then, Jimbo, how many other coaches had national championships last year? There were like 3, right? That were active, 3 or 4. So Jimbo would have been ranked ahead of Sarkisian. He would have been ranked, with ahead of a lot of guys, ahead of Norvell. So it's not just body of work, but it's not like Clemson has fallen into a crater. They still got the multiple national championships. They've still got, 5 or 6 ACC titles in the last 8 years, and they're still winning 9 games. Now, we see that it seems to be doing this and not this. But, for now, I don't think you can make an argument that I wouldn't say I get it. If I was on 3, I would have Norvell behind Dabo, maybe at least for another year. Does that seem fair? And I'm a huge Norvell fan, clearly, obviously, but I do think track record matters some. Like there's been a lot, and I don't think Norvell is this at all, because I know the nuts and bolts of this program. I know the guts of this program. He is not a 1 or 2 year wonder, but there have been a lot of those. There have been a lot of national coaches of the year that you wouldn't want coaching Florida State right now.
See, it's tricky because I agree with a lot of your sentiment here, but I do feel like Clemson's on the way down, and I don't want to compare this to early 2000s Bowden, where like that 2003 team was like a dead cat bounce. But there's a difference between not being able to compete in the NIL marketplace and being unwilling to do so. I think Clemson can compete if they would like to, but their head coach seemingly has no desire to do so. Right. I know it was only 1 year head-to-head where they lost to Florida State and had to go to overtime, but there's nothing about the trajectory of Florida State over the last 24 months and Clemson the last 24 months that would make you think that you would be in better hands having Dabo Swinney as your head coach. I don't know if that's what power rankings are trying to determine.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about the here and now, and we're not hanging on stuff that happened 5, 6, 7 years ago in a completely different climate than what we're operating in now, sure, at that point, I'll put Dabo Swinney ahead of Mike Norvell. But living in today's day and age, in the reality of what things are right now, I'd be hard pressed to say there's any coach better than Mike Norvell in the ACC.
Well, and what's funny is, I know what I just said, but if you came to me right now and said, Corey, you can have Dabo at the same price you're paying Mike Norvell. He'd come and he'd drop everything and be Florida State's head coach tomorrow. I'd say no thanks. But I think that's more about his obviously public problem with not just NIL but the portal. I mean, he just doesn't use the portal, and in 2024, that's bonkers to have that mindset where you're not going to use the portal. But yeah, it's hard.
This coming season, though, Corey, this is the tiebreaker, right? Because Mike is theoretically going to be using a quarterback that Dabo couldn't win enough with.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And guys, you pass your peak. Like how many guys would you take ahead of LeBron James right now in the NBA? 15, 20? I don't know. They're probably around that. Let's count them down. You got Jokic. You got Anthony. No, I'm not going to do that, folks. But there are plenty more guys that you would take ahead of LeBron James right now if you were starting a franchise than you would have 5 or 6 years ago. I still think, if you're doing a power ranking of the best players in the NBA, like taking everything into account, LeBron is still number one because he's probably the second best player that's ever played. But you know what I mean? So the power ranking is what we don't really define our terms about what it means or what On3 meant with the ACC power rankings. I do know this. Dabo Swinney has accomplished a heck of a lot more than Mike Norvell in college football so far. I also know that I would not trade Mike Norvell for Dabo Swinney. That's a fair answer to the question. Sorry, Cummins. This could have been a 30-second spot. It turned into a 7-minute spot. That's my fault.
Generating discussion sparked by our friends over at Cummins, and the question from Warchant subscriber Noel for live class of 2007. He will be entered into a monthly drawing for a swag bag of free gear from Cummins, as well as our end-of-year grand prize giveaway that will either be a Cummins power station or a Cummins portable generator.
Wow, nice. Wow.
All right, I was the one that deemed that the best question, so you all can sling your arrows at me. I'll integrate Corey into it more next week. But you're going to have to jump in here, Corey, and read all 17 questions and see which one you like best. So.
Yeah. No, I got you.
All right, 229 Noel. Few statements to preface my question.
I found it. I found the question that I brought up. 28.7 million people watched the 1991 wide right.
Are you serious?
It had a 28.7 Nielsen rating. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. That might have been
I've done that once or twice.
That might have been for the Miami area. It had a 28.7. My fault.
All right. 229 Noel. Few statements, then a question. Offensive line should be more experienced, hopefully better at run blocking especially. Running back room is good, has quality depth. We will have a new quarterback with limited reps in this system. Our defense should be good again. Front four combined with the talented and deep secondary should slow opposing offenses. Now my question, will Mike Norvell rely on the run game early or all year long? Or will he open it up and keep the big plays and the high-scoring offense going to put up big numbers on the scoreboard?
Well, we can't give away the secrets. We don't know if Georgia Tech's listening. I can tell you that who I don't know, but I will say I can promise you that's what his hope and goal is to be able to run the ball all year and do it early and do it often and do it even when you know it's coming. And the one thing that we haven't talked about recently that will be a factor in this running game is not just that I think the O-line will be better, but also you're going to have a quarterback that is a first down machine on third and short. You just do. And I think he is the kind of kid that will not that Travis wasn't, but Travis trusted his ability to make those short passes so much. I think DJ is a guy that's going to get you that he's going to be an element in the running game that you didn't have last year, man. I mean, again, your starting quarterback ran for like 140 yards all season. I think DJ is going to run for more of that. He's going to get you more first downs.
M. Adams CZ, it's our guy Mark in Naples. This was one of the questions I was in the vying for question of the week. You have the chance to coach one of the following 4 teams at Florida State. Which would you coach and why? And what would you do different as the leader of those great teams? 93, 99, 2013, or 2023? And since you're not the head coach, or since we both can't be the head coach, who's the first lieutenant, like Mickey Andrews type coordinator who just gets it done on his side of the ball? Go.
You go first.
I was going to say 13 because there was no great adversity you had to kind of conquer. I don't know, like 99, not having P-Dub. I might have cried. People might have seen me crying out when it would have been good for the locker room morale. But then, 13, having to deal with half the season with the specter of stuff lingering over your quarterback. But they feel more my vintage. I don't know. Like I couldn't lead the 99 team. They're my age. I would need to lead people younger than me. They would look up to me and think that I was smarter than they were when I'm really not. So, yeah, give me 13, man. Give me Jameis and just throw it to 1, throw it to 80, hand it off to 8, and then just being able to laugh at Jeremy Pruitt, being a caveman, and just dialing up all sorts of crazy schemes.
That's a fine answer. Is the question who we'd want to coach? Just what one team we'd want to coach?
Yeah, if you could put yourself in the shoes of a head coach and you only had one team you could do it with, of those 4 teams, the 3 national title teams and the team that arguably should have been playing for one.
Yeah, I would say I think the 93 team would probably been really fun to coach. Because, again, they started out the year where Derek Brooks scored more points than opponents through the first month of the season. And Derek Brooks, as you guys all know, was a defensive player. And he had more touchdowns than Florida State's opponents through the first 4 games, which is still incredible. They just seem more fun to coach. And in that game at Notre Dame, I would not have thrown into the wind as much as they did. That was a misstep. And I also, about 3 quarters into the season, would have been like, hey, I like Sean Jackson a lot. He's a nice change of pace. I want him on the field a lot too. But Warwick Dunn is going to be our primary running back, and we're going to get him the ball 20 times a game in a variety of ways. Like against Notre Dame, I don't know, man. I think Warwick Dunn might have had 6 touches, and it should have been 20. And they had nobody that could. You think that Notre Dame in 1993 had linebackers that could stay with Warwick Dunn? He scored one of the touchdowns on just a simple flare pass where he got to the edge, Jalen Lucas style, because the Notre Dame linebacker couldn't keep up with him. So that would be my answer is 93. I also would have run the clock down to 1 second before Bentley kicks the go-ahead game-winning field goal.
Okay. Right.
There's no reason to leave any time on the clock. You also don't need to be in the right side of that crazy hash. I would have centered it and then kicked it with 1 second left. Right. I love you, Bobby. I do. That was a little frustrating to watch, those last 20 seconds.
I would have handed the ball to James Wilder more.
Okay.
Only 81. Only 81 totes for our guy in 2013.
Is crazy.
Speaking
right?
about abs, I mean, come on.
Oh,
man.
my gosh.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah.
By the way, Mark adds, screw the Canes in perpetuity.
Okay, fair enough.
MyBookie.ag, promo code WARCHANT. Use that when you sign up for the first time. You get an instant cash deposit bonus. MyBookie.ag, you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Live betting, live casino, sportsbook. All right. UConn, odds-on favorite to win the whole thing at minus 190. Purdue, plus 200. Alabama, plus 1,600. North Carolina State, plus 1,800. You can also bet on the women's championship winner. South Carolina, the odds-on favorite there at only minus 200. I mean, I think they're literally undefeated. But hey, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, UConn also lurking. Make your picks. You can also pick on the game itself. UConn still favored by 12 over Alabama. The Purdue-North Carolina State game now down to 9. So use that as you will. Promo, use that as you will. But know that it requires a $50 minimum deposit and rollover requirement of one-timer deposit total, including bonus for withdrawal. For full terms and conditions, visit mybookie.ag/about-us. FSU man, 50-30, wake up. I was looking at the 2020 depth chart to guess who would have been the 10th best player on the Warchant top 40.
Oh, boy.
I guess maybe Emmitt Smith, maybe Travis J. So then I would ask how many players.
Emmitt Smith. I wish they had Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Rice.
Oh.
Travis J. Sorry. So then I would ask you how many players on the current roster are better than that 10th player? Who on the current roster would be at that cutoff point of 10th best player on the 2020 team? Just a thought experiment. This, too, honorable mention for best question, probably, Corey.
Can you look up? Do we know who the 10th player was on that team?
Especially because, actually, no, never mind. I was going to have this real big rah-rah speech about how I actually have the physical list in front of me here, but this is the 2021.
Oh, so you screwed it up.
And I don't have, I can
Oh,
probably look it up here real quick, though. That's a good question. Let's get to the bottom of it. Who says hoarding is a bad idea? At least, your footprint on the internet. Number 10 on the 2020 list, Kalen Laburn.
Okay. So that's a hard one because he actually ended up being really good at Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Who was number 11?
Amari Gaynor.
And who was number 9?
DJ Matthews.
Okay, so we see the pond we're fishing in. I would guess if we're going to do Gaynor, and we like Gaynor, good guy. Dad was a Nole in helped start the dynasty. Had a huge catch in the Fiesta Bowl against Nebraska in '87. Old Herb could play. His son could play. I would guess 30, 35.
That's accurate. I wouldn't push back on that number.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a list, man. I don't want to. Andrew Baselli was on this list.
Yeah.
Brady Scott was on this list. I'm a jerk. I'm sorry. I hope both of those guys. I hope Brady's in love and married and doing great. And I hope for the best for Andrew Baselli. I know he went down to FAU and finished out his career, so I hope he got his degree, hopefully 2 degrees, and is doing great. Jordan Travis was 31st on the list. I did not have him ranked. Everybody else had him ranked in their 30s. Gene had him at number 20.
Oh, well, Gene was always a believer.
He was.
Gene was always on board before everybody else.
He was.
I just found it. You gotta love modern day newspaper websites. I found an article from 1991 that was talking about the Miami Hurricanes' big draw. Like they got a 10 point. So that was a 10.9 nationally. So 11 million people watched that game at noon on a Saturday. And remember, the West Coast, it's 9 in the morning. Which is just crazy. Why would you do that? But anyway, so 11 million people watched that game. I found it. It's the stories about how the Hurricanes and the Heat are the Miami Heat, who's probably their second year of existence, are drawing big numbers. And then I can only read it for about 3 seconds before it pops up telling me I need to buy a subscription. I'm reading an article that is 33 years old. And to read it, I need to buy a subscription. Like, why wouldn't your archives be free at least? Good grief. So I don't even forget. So I would say, yeah, it's not a great list. It's very telling. And I think that goes to the heart of what I've been trying to say now is that even though this team doesn't have the top-end talent, I might not have the top-end talent of last year's team. It might not have as many early-round draft picks next year. I just think the collection of talent is so much better than it's been. Like I know that's an understatement, but it's worlds better than it's been. Like, again, Amari Gaynor this year would probably be in the 30s, maybe, if he was coming back for a 5th season. Some of those other guys would not be on the team, quite frankly. They just wouldn't be on the team. You've got guys, like you said, that Marvin Jones might not start. He would have been 6th on that list, I bet, or 4th. He might not start. He's going to play, clearly. They're going to have a rotation. But Lola Hay and Patrick Payton might be your starters. Marvin Jones, 5-star defensive end from Georgia, transfer, might not start. So I think that just shows you're going to have, Portier might not start. Or Malik Benson might not start. Jaylen Brown, a high 4-star recruit from just 2 years ago, probably won't start. But the depth is so – the second string at Florida State – this year, I think, it will be better than it's been since 2013 maybe, or 14. Maybe better than those. It turned out, I guess there wasn't a ton of talent waiting in the wings after all those NFL guys left. So that's what's so exciting about this roster is that, you don't have a Jared Verse or Keon Coleman maybe, but you got a lot of Kalen DeLoaches, Akeem Dents, just good college football players that probably will play in the NFL in some capacity. So that's cool, man. It's a good place to be.
All right, last one. There was 2 other questions from our guy Mignats, which I don't have the answer to, about exit fees, GOR fees, if they're paid over installments, and if the ACC were to dissolve, are you then off the hook? I don't know. Good question, though. We'll ask somebody that might know. And then our guy Riser Mike had a bunch of questions for Coach Norvell, which this is the
well, I would say this
mailbag with us.
Right. We don't have. I guess we could ask them the next time we get them.
Yeah.
I would say if the ACC dissolved, then yeah, you don't owe them anything. There's nothing. Who do you pay?
Right.
There's nobody to pay the hundreds of millions of dollars. Jim Phillips. So if the ACC is no longer an entity, then yeah, you're not going to have to pay anything. But I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah, just Riser Mike had a question about the GPS stuff. Who's tracking the numbers? They got guys that are part of like the strength staff that are out there with computers and like radars that are pulling in all that data. Do they monitor these to determine when and how hard they push players to prevent injury? Yes, they look at that stuff all the time. Do they celebrate accomplishments together as a team? That I don't know. How many players have broken the 22-mile-an-hour threshold? I don't know that either. I have lots of questions, he says. Have a great day.
Yeah.
One of these days we'll get to that. Maybe some off-season stuff. Holler at me in May, Riser Mike, and we'll get that done for you. All right, that's a wrap for us. We're going to go watch practice. And then we're going to do another show and talk about all the stuff that we saw at practice. Pretty cool, right? That's our jobs. It's good to be Corey Clark and Aslan Hudjavani some days.
Amen.
All right, Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. Everything you want over at warchant.com, the Ultimate Seminoles Sports Source. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the new Renegade Express mailbag with our friends over at Cummins, generating discussion. Remember, follow them on Instagram, Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. Piece of cake. They're Noles, helping us out. For Corey, I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.